Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome a new friend of the show. His name is the legendary Dr. John Demartini. Welcome. Yes. Good morning. Hi. Wonderful. We are streaming this live on Instagram. We are filming it for 5FM TV. Make yourself at home, sir.
He looks just as good on the internet.
This
as what
is
he
so
does in real
bizarre.
life. Look at him.
Yo, I sat up until 4 o'clock this morning watching as much as I could find on YouTube about you, and you look exactly, I mean, literally, this is so surreal. Good morning, how do you do?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
That's actually really good. I mean, look, let's just cut. Look, the biography alone was half the show. You're 63 years old, and you look absolutely incredible. Thin. How would you describe, ladies? Thin black locks, a glowing face. Hey.
Oh, youthful, absolutely youthful,
Definitely.
and just like his book covers.
My girlfriend was lying next to me in bed last night. She's like, "There's no ways he's 63." How do you do that? How do you do that?
You know, I don't know. I just I do what I love, and I love what I do. So it keeps you present.
I watched so many fascinating talks you've given, but we've got to start right at the beginning, just to give and amazing as well. You're on a station that talks predominantly to like young people, and I would have thought that if you're going to explore all these things like what your values are and how to improve your life, the perfect age to actually be talking to. Yes. I sat there wondering, like, what is the average age group of somebody who comes to one of your talks, and I wonder how many of them are actually young people.
Well, that's special to me because when I was 17 years old, I nearly died.
Yes, you have to tell the story.
Yeah, And so a lovely gentleman named Paul Bragg, who is an elderly gentleman, one night in 1 hour shared one message that changed the trajectory of my life. And that night, I had a dream that maybe I could overcome my learning problems, and I wanted to become a teacher. And since that night, that's what I've wanted to do. And I thought to myself, someday when I'm his age, I want to find a 17-year-old young man and pass the torch to him. And so that age group is very special to me. It's something I'm working on all the way probably to my passing. Okay,
wow. Right. Tell, if you don't mind, I know you've probably told the story a million times, but I really did find it genuinely fascinating. Just some of the, I don't want to trivialize it, but you had learning conditions, you had physical challenges that you had to overcome, and at one point you'd written off any sort of dream of, who would have thought that you'd end up where you are now, and just how you got there, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, I was told in first grade by my first grade teacher in front of my parents, I said, I'm afraid he'll never be able to read, he'll never be able to write, he won't be able to communicate very well because he couldn't speak, I had speech impediment, and that he won't amount to anything or go very far in life. But he likes to run, because I had to wear braces as a child because I had a deformed arm and leg. So when I got out of the braces, all I wanted to do is run, play with the kids. So she said that put him into sports because he'll excel there. He's not going to make it in school, but he'll make it in sports. So that's why I left school at a young age and went to surfing. I went into the sport of surfing. And but I was very blessed to meet Paul Bragg because I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't met him that day.
It's incredible. And then you've also got to talk, I'm going to, you know what the thing is, I watch and I've realized that it's impossible to sit and try and squeeze everything in with you in the time that we have. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump around subjects. The fasting and the diet you went on was also just fascinating. And I think that you probably end up an explanation for why you look as good as you do. But that was really interesting. While you were surfing, the reading, the obsession you had with learning, and I thought Sarishni would find that fascinating as well because she fasts often and we don't really even understand a lot of, we always you make jokes about it, but it actually was incredible.
Well, I had, when I almost died, I had strychnine cyanide poisoning. And Paul Bragg said that if I fasted and reduced my fat content, that's where they stores most of the toxins. So I fasted, and I did a lot of fasting. And I literally got down to 80 pounds at one time, and people thought, oh my God, he's going to die or something.
And the neighbor, tell the story about the neighbor. Listen to this.
There was a medical doctor, Dr. McGrath, that lived next door, and he said to my parents, says, I don't think he's going to live. I think he's going to die by Friday. And he actually died on Friday.
On the Friday.
Oh, wow. He died on Friday.
Strange coincidence, obviously.
He was around 60 at the time, and he was out with young women.
Oh, well.
And I think his heart gave out.
Well,
I mean, what a way to go, huh?
But he was projecting his death to me,
right,
onto me.
Sure.
But caloric restriction and fasting has unquestionable benefits on longevity, and that's one of the few things that does it. And they're using it now even in cancer patients. because it's helping in longevity and cleaning out the cells, the debris in the cells.
Okay. I made some notes of things I wanted to ask you while we have some time with you. What would your thoughts then be on? So the diet overall, you've gradually changed your diet as you've got older, but you were a strict vegetarian. It was grapes and water. Fasted for 100 days. You only ate 100 out of 3 years.
Yeah, between 18 and 19, I did an extreme fast. Yeah. I'm not recommending that necessarily, but I had strychnine symptoms. In those days, there was a singer named Joe Cocker, and Joe Cocker was kind of spastic.
Yes.
And I had a lot of those type of spasms, so I did a lot of fasting because it was helping. I was making a reduction of those symptoms. So I did a lot of fasting and drank water and ate grapes. It was called the grape cure at the time. I'm not recommending it to necessarily to just anybody, but it really did help me. And then once I got the symptoms down, I started eating relatively more normal. But I still eat, I think, a relatively wise diet compared to what most people eat.
Okay, all right. And now let's talk about what it is that you do. First, I've got to just you have this impression. You have this picture of somebody sitting there driving around in the car with like self-help CDs. You're a good person. You can do this. That's not what you do. But I'd like you to just explain the difference between motivational speaking and inspirational speaking, and where you fit into the spectrum.
Right.
Yes.
Well, everybody has a set of priorities, a set of values that they live their life by, moment by moment. Things that are most important to least important in their life. In my case, I love researching and teaching, and I don't love cooking and driving. I haven't driven for 27 and a half years, and I haven't cooked for many, many years, since I was 24.
You delegate these things.
I delegate. Anytime you're not doing the highest priority things, you're devaluing yourself. So everybody has this, and when they live congruently and in alignment with what they value most, and they give themselves permission to do what's truly most important and most authentic to them, they are inspired spontaneously within. It's an intrinsic value. It's a non-derivative value. But when they're subordinating to the world on the outside and letting everybody else influence them, they'll typically do things that are not highest on their value to fit in instead of stand out. And when they go into lower values, as a result of that, they need motivation and incentivization to get them to keep doing things. And so I'm not a motivational speaker because that's trying to persuade you to do something that goes against what your values are, highest values. I'm more interested in helping people identify what they value most and structure their life and orchestrate it like a master with a symphony instead of a cacophony, and let them go after something that's truly meaningful and inspiring to them. So
and that's the thing. So inspiration linked with success. I got a lot of this out of watching you talking, and part of it is trying to find your values. Can you give it a more, not a generic example of how you would go about it, or how somebody would go about trying to find their value?
I developed a value determination process because I noticed that when you ask people what their values are, most people would inject the values of society, mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, or peer pressure, and tell you what they think it should be or ought to be instead of what their life demonstrates. So I wanted to find a way of looking objectively at what the values, how they're really living their life. Because I'm not interested in what they say, I'm interested in what they live. And I determined 13 primary value determinants. And it's on my website. If a person wants to go to the website, they can go on drdemartini.com.
We actually did it. It takes about half an hour.
It takes about a half hour.
I really love the colorful blocks and that.
Yes. Well, I can thank Clarissa Judd, who's the director, who's organized that. She upgraded that. But what that is a way of getting objectively what exactly is that's truly valuable to you. So I look at how you fill your space, how you spend your time, what energizes you, what is it you spend your money on, what is it that's most organized in your life? Where you're most disciplined? What do you think about, visualize, and talk to other people about most, and talk to yourself about most? And what is it that you're inspired by? What are the most consistent goals that are coming true in your life? And what is it you love learning about? They give you a better idea of what's really valuable to you, so you can start to prioritize your life accordingly and structure your life in a way where you can't wait to get up in the morning and serve people.
Well, okay, but if the average person gets up in the morning, I mean, a young person, and you got to look at like the way we've been almost programmed to. Most people's objectives and to make money. And I would imagine that a lot of people that come to watch your shows and to talk are trying to figure out ways to improve their financial circumstances. But you get sucked into this world of you call it consumerables, and it's wasting your money on the wrong things. And I thought young audience need to hear a bit more of this from somebody like you. And
yes, this is important. I have the opportunity to speak in front of large audiences many times, and I'll ask people, how many of you want to be financially independent? And every hand goes up. It's pretty unanimous. And then I said, how many of you are financially independent? And a lot of hands go down, most of them. And I said, isn't it interesting that 99 to 100% of the people say they want to be financially independent, but literally 1% or less actually obtain it? I said, somehow there's a discrepancy. And I found out that people, even though they say they want to be financially independent, their vision is to live the lifestyles of the rich and famous, consuming depreciables and living a good life, instead of actually putting their money into assets that accumulate, that actually build wealth so they can have a passive income. So they really think they want to be financially independent, but their values won't let them get there.
It's like a fantasy.
Yeah, it's a fantasy. And then they beat themselves up wondering why is it not happening. But the hierarchy of one's values, the set of priorities that they live by, determines their financial destiny. And unless they really value wealth building, they're not likely to take immediate gratification and set it aside and think long-term vision and save and invest the money and buy things that go up in value and put money in their pocket.
That's amazing. And I was wondering, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the relationship, not just with your children, but children in general. And I would imagine that figuring out your values would be something you'd almost want to brainwash your child to be questioning at a young age.
Well, anytime that you take actions that are aligned with what you value most, you spontaneously act, and you're more likely to expand yourself and give yourself permission to do something extraordinary. So living authentically, the magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasy you'll impose on yourself. So giving yourself permission to do something extraordinary on the planet is I think, what our real difference that we want to make is. I don't think that anybody really wants to get up and shrink. They want to get up and shine. And so I think by living congruently and living authentically according to what they really value, they open the doorways for opportunity. Their self-worth goes up, which helps them in receiving and holding on to money. When they're in an inspired state, they are more likely to love people and appreciate because they're reflections of themselves. And that helps them in social settings. Almost every area of life is empowered and enhanced by living authentically. I think the world around us is trying to get us to be ourselves.
It's incredible. So there's also skeptics. You must come across skeptics that are going to question a lot of what you say.
Yes, I think skeptics are essential. You know, there's gullibles and there's skeptics. And gullibles sometimes don't ask enough questions and they just believe without thinking. And the skeptic has to make them ask the questions that they're unwilling to ask, the gullibles, and helps bring both of them into balance. I think that it's essential to have a skeptic. I've been on many radio shows where they have a professional skeptic asking questions and debunking things.
And grilling you.
Yeah, and
really.
It's actually more informative many times than any other time because you're getting down to everything that people are really thinking, and you're making sure you address those issues with more detail.
Another thing, just to give you some insight into our show, we can even casually just mention cyberbullying or bullying comes up, and I'll receive 5 emails later that day from different organizations or even parents who want us to talk about it more often. So that was interesting. You spoke about how to not be intimidated by people. You have step-by-step, actually, when you can think about it, simple things you can do day to day to try and deal with these things. But bullying, I think anybody listening to this, there's so many kids that have been bullied, parents that have to deal with this. I've got friends of mine who go through this kind of stuff, and I just wanted you to share some of your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I ask people as I travel how many have been bullied, and so far it's been 100%.
Everybody puts their hand up in the room.
Everybody puts their hand up. They've been bullied somewhere in their life. And then I ask how many of you have bullied somebody, and 100% of the hands go up. So it's something that's not...
That we recognize in ourselves.
Yeah, it's something we have to honor in ourselves and recognize in ourselves because we do it at times. When we get our values challenged, we sometimes can act like the bully. So it's not something to avoid, in my opinion. It's something to find out how we use it to our advantage. Because in life, we have to be prepared for life. And it's the challenges in life that make us entrepreneurial. It's the challenges in life that make us innovate. It's the challenge in life that makes us strong. So we have to learn how to ask, how is whatever's happening to me, how's it helping me fulfill what I dream about in life? Because it's never what happens, it's your perception, decisions, and actions you take. So asking a new set of questions, okay, this has happened, we're not denying it, but now how do we use it to our greatest advantage? How do we do something with it? Otherwise, the bully wins, and if not, we win. And it's wisest for us to take it and use it to our greatest advantage.
Let's get back to breaking through. You mentioned so many things, values and worth. How does somebody measure their worth? That's such a strange thing to think about. I mean, for example, can I give you an example about us?
Yeah.
So here we are. We work in a business where, a lot of what we said almost feels like it goes into a microphone and evaporates into the air. Whereas somebody like a builder would go home at the end, drive past a site and he'll show his wife and he'll go, you know what, look at that, I built that.
Well, there's different forms of wealth. There is intellectual property, and you leave intellectual property in the world. There's also a business you could leave. There's also wealth building in the sense of finances. Then there's beautiful children. Children are wealth. And then you have social influence. And then you have physical vitality and beauty. And then you also have inspiration. All of them are wealth. All of them are parts of self-worth. And the ones that you value the most is where you concentrate most of your wealth. You can communicate and actually concentrate financial wealth if you have a value on that. But everybody has wealth, and everybody's worth loving and appreciating for their wealth, their own form. But you can convert it into cash wealth if you value that. But all of them are convertible into any form. It's a matter of just basically valuing that, because whatever we value most is what starts to manifest. Our innermost dominant thought becomes our outermost tangible reality, and we think most about what we value most.
Values, amazing. The interesting examples you gave as well in some of your talks, you often reference Bill Gates, and it's not so much about, you put your hand up how many of you use Microsoft Windows, but what was interesting was that they developed a business that actually serves the needs of tons and tons and dozens of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. And interesting, you say that if you don't genuinely want to have a positive effect on lots of people, you'll never actually be wealthy.
Well, there's 6 steps to wealth that I found in the wealthiest billionaires that I've interviewed, and that is that they've dedicated their life to serving vast numbers of people. Because if you don't have a service for vast numbers of people, it's unlikely to have a vast source of income. They've also dedicated to managing the business effectively and efficiently so the people have fair exchange and the customers receive the best product for the best price. Then they also learn to save a portion of it, to build up a cash reserve to stabilize the business so it's less volatile, so they can focus on the highest priority things and innovate. Then they make sure that they invest and put it into the economy in ways that help other people. And then they accumulate it, and then they build some sort of cause that they can contribute back to society with. This is common to almost every billionaire that I've interviewed, these 6 steps. So I'm a firm believer that it starts with caring about people. I was speaking one time at a church, and the church asked me about prosperity. And I said, well, if you're poor, it may be that you're not caring enough about humanity to step out of your own livings and into serving other people. If you do, then you'll always have a source of income. My father, when I was 9, gave me the opportunity to go to the neighbors to earn money when I was 9, and I became a little entrepreneur. And I am very grateful to learn how to make a difference and serve people.
Always talking about children on the show. It's like, also you mentioned giving back to the community, having influence, having positive influence over people. What are your thoughts on like this weird world we live in, social media, Instagram, and particularly obsessing over people? I mean, I've seen interviews with people like Piers Morgan and other members of the media who get so concerned about the fact that their daughters idolize the Kardashians, and he gets all worked up. Many people say like, well, they're not exactly the greatest influence. My girlfriend, I mean, she's completely she's obsessed with Courtney. If Courtney's wearing pink shorts, she's wearing pink shorts. But that's not healthy, is it?
Well, we're not here to live in the shadows of anyone. We're here to stand on the shoulders of giants. We're not here to compare ourselves to others. We're here to compare our daily actions to our own dreams. And we have to care enough about ourselves and others to find out what we're really dedicated to and make a difference to other people's by being true to ourselves.
Okay.
Boom.
Nice.
I see. I was going on about how we're going to run out of time. Could you tell us a little bit about, obviously, the show, the workshops that you are promoting while you're here in South Africa, the Breaking Through?
Well, I just recently did the breakthrough over the weekend. And I'm about to start Master Planning for Life tomorrow, which is 3 days dedicated to deciding. See, if you don't fill your day with things that inspire you, it fills up with things that don't. If you don't go after and pursue challenges that inspire you, you keep attracting challenges that don't. So Master Planning is a program I do to help people define exactly what they want in life, or otherwise they'll be inundated by everybody else's expectations. And they got to be willing to stand out, not always just fit in. Otherwise they don't make the greatest difference, and they don't leave their mark in the world.
Okay. Dr. John Demartini has a really interesting, what would you call it, a form or a survey that you fill out with the points to try and get a better understanding of or to isolate and group your values. And I think if you're listening to this, you should give that a go.
Yes, if you go on the website, drdemartini.com, they can go on and do the complementary value determination process to help you decide what is really important to you, so you're not infiltrated by other people. Nobody gets up in the morning and dedicates their life to your fulfillment. If you're not doing it, no one else will.
You hear that, kids? Hey, moms and dads. That was Dr. John
And make sure,
Demartini.
whoever's out there, please give yourself permission to do something extraordinary on planet Earth. And no matter what you've done or not done, you're worthy of love. Give yourself permission to say thank you to yourself. It opens the doors to the heart and allows you to shine your message.
You are loved.
You are loved. There we go. Thanks for listening. We love you long time. One more time, a massive shout out to our special guest, Dr. John Demartini. Hurrah, boom shakalaka.
5FM. Watch 5FM TV on YouTube. 5FM.